Hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk about two things. One is the economic impact of the lockdown and recession in the economy. And the second thing is the view of the market. So on the first point, which is the economic situation, the economic impact will obviously depend on, number one, the magnitude and duration of the COVID-19 outbreak. And number two, government response in terms of opening up the economy and fiscal support over time. On COVID-19 itself, number of active cases is still rising in India. And more importantly, they continue to increase in the industrialized states of Gujarat, Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu. On the positive side, many states have seen a decline in active cases, which reduces the pressure on the medical system in the states, and will also assure general population about the eventual fatality rate of COVID-19. Accordingly, recovery rate in several states has increased to high levels. It's above 50% in many states. And the latter should encourage state government to reopen most parts of the economy over the next few weeks. Overall recovery rate is 39%, but that is on the lower side in the important states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and West Bengal. As of now, it looks like the slowdown will be quite prolonged and the economy will take long to recover, given number one, the significant negative impact on the middle economy, which is the MSME sector and self-employed workers. Number two, the financial sector from higher NPLs, which will also affect lending in the medium term. And number three, manufacturing sector due to demand destruction as also migrant labor issues. One point to keep in mind is that the economy was slowing down even before the COVID-19 outbreak. Despite 2019 GDP growth was only 6.1%, which was revised down from 6.8% earlier. 1Q FY20, that is June 2019 quarter, was 5.6% GDP growth. September 2019 quarter was 5.1. December 2019 quarter was 4.7. So clearly we're already seeing a slowdown in the economy. And the fundamental problem in the economy has been simply the lack of household income growth, which relates more to fundamental problems of weak job situation, which basically relates to inadequate investment in physical capital and human capital over time. This is a structural problem and does not have any quick fixes. On FY21 GDP, anyway, it's anybody's guess at this point in time. As of now, we are looking at a 5.8% decline in real GDP for FY21, with about 14% decline in industry part of the GDP, 3.4% decline in services, and 2.9% growth in agriculture. The numbers used about 5% real GDP growth before the COVID-19 outbreak. The biggest worry as far as GDP is concerned is the investment part, which is about 30% of GDP. This could easily decline by 25 to 50% in the first half of FY21, as companies, governments and households have very little ability and willingness to invest in new assets. Companies will want to preserve cash and will thus focus only on maintenance capex and postpone all future capex. And number two, households would likely postpone purchase of new houses given concerns around household income. And number three, government will have to cut capital expenditure in light of severe fiscal stress, given collapse in taxation revenues. We have seen some amount of fiscal monetary response from the government and RBI to mitigate the impact of the lockdown and slow down the economy, and we just discussed that. On the government response so far has been focused on the supply side reforms in improving ease of doing business, addressing factors of production, deregulation, various sectors, etc. However, the benefits of supply side reforms will take long time to percolate into the economy, and there are always plenty of challenges in implementing such reforms in India. The current problem, as we all know, is more of a demand side problem, given severe hit to both consumption and investment demand, and due to lockdown and extended period of time, and the resultant prolonged and patchy recovery in the economy. The government, if you recollect, had announced economic package of 21 trillion rupees for the economy, but this includes 8 trillion of monetary support from the RBI and about 1.8 trillion in the first round of or the first package was announced on March 26th. Honestly, the package is quite underwhelming, given the fact that only about 2 trillion rupees of actual cash will come into the hands of households. That is only 1% GDP and will not provide any real support to the economy given the severe slowdown which we are seeing currently. The key highlights of the 5 packages announced by the government over May 13 to 17 are: number one, rupees 3 trillion collateral 300% credit guarantee scheme for MSME, which will result in additional funds being available to MSMEs up to 20% outstanding loans for eligible borrowers. That should partly address the problem which we are seeing in the MSME sector, given the liquidity challenges for the smaller companies and the risk of that liquidity challenge could become eventually a solvency problem. The second highlight of the package is about 400 billion rupees of additional funds being available under the NREGA scheme to create jobs in rural areas for migrant workers. And number 3, I would say deregulation of agriculture sector through Amendment to Essential Commodities Act and APMC Act. This remains to be seen because this is a legislative issue, and there are clearly a lot many challenges in the agriculture sector which we can talk about later. In the first package on March 20th, recollect, the total amount was about 1.8 trillion. However, out of that, a large portion pertained to states and also some portion pertained to simply expenditure which the government would have any incurred in FY21. The government just included as a part of the fiscal package. So the real package is only about 1 trillion rupees compared to 1.8, which was the announced number. So as of now, the support to the economy from the government side is very limited. And despite that, we are looking at India's fiscal deficit going up to about 11% in FY21. Central fiscal deficit GDP would be about 7.2% versus the budget number was 3.5%. And state CFD GDP will be about 4%. We have assumed about 2% extra stimulus from the central government. Lower oil prices will allow some government to provide some stimulus, but as of now, the stimulus is fairly limited in size. On the RBI response, is somewhat more forceful, and the whole focus was on reducing borrowing costs, enhancing the liquidity in the system, and protection of financial sector balance sheets. The total support from RBI is measured about 8 trillion rupees. If you recollect, RBI cut repo rate by about 75 basis points to 4.4% from 5.15%, and it has injected fair amount of liquidity in the system through various measures, cut CRR 1% point to 3%, cut NSF limit by about 1%, and done various rounds of LTRO options. Now, coming to the sector-wise impact of the lockdown and the recession economy, one way to think about it, this is to just break the entire economy into 6 buckets, which is the consumption part, which is staples and discretionary. Number 2 is financials or financing of consumption. Number 3, the investment part. 4, outsourcing, which is IT, pharmaceuticals, etc. 5 is the global commodities part, and 6 is utilities. And the best way to understand the implications for these various parts of the economy would be to look at the sectors in the context of the impact of COVID-19 outbreak on demand, both during the lockdown as also after easing of lockdown. So if you look at demand implications of COVID-19 on various sectors, and I will divide this into 3 broad buckets. Number 1 is sectors which will have low impact on demand of the lockdown, and maybe not so much impact on demand even going forward. And there will be some impact, but not a lot, and I will include sectors like agriculture inputs, consumer staples, pharmaceuticals, telecom in this bucket. The second broad bucket would be sectors where you would see large impact on demand during the lockdown, but maybe a reasonably fast recovery in demand after the lockdown is lifted. And I would include small ticket consumer discretionary items, some global commodities, lending also to some extent, and maybe two-wheelers, in this category. And the third category would be sectors which would see severe demand impact during the lockdown, but very gradual recovery even after easing of lockdown. And this would include sectors like capital goods, construction materials, cement, large ticket consumer discretionary items, residential real estate, etc., which require a large amount of outlay. And I would assume at this point in time there would be limited ability and willingness of whether it is the household sector or the government sector or the private sector to invest in large ticket items. Now coming to specific sectors, if you look at the first one, which is automobiles, clearly you will see severe demand impact in 2021, given negative implications of COVID and the recession in the economy on household income. Two-wheeler demand may hold up better than four-wheeler demand, but rural India is less affected. There will be government support available for rural India through various existing government schemes. And some commuters may want to opt for the safety of personal transport over public transport. So in that, tractor demand may hold up better. Having said that, you could also see a lot of changes to the distribution of financing models for automobiles. Online could pick up. Households may opt for smaller cars instead of larger cars. Companies may have to support dealers through higher dealership margins and also may dictate the cost of inventory, given likely very low volumes in FY21. And dealership economics was even not looking very good in FY20 itself. Also, on the financing side, banks and industries would be somewhat reluctant to lend to the marginal borrowers. They'll be more focused on the more prime and super prime borrowers. And some of the marginal borrowers like taxi drivers, fleet operators, etc., may struggle to get new financing. On capital goods and construction, really, the cycle is going to push back further. As such, the capital cycle was very weak for the last few years, given challenges to the household income, as also government revenues and the balance sheet of private companies. The bulk of incremental spending over the last few years has been done by the government part, and given the severe negative implications for government revenues because of the recession in the economy, I would assume even government spending would be postponed. So this is the part which worries me. Investment cycle will take a very long time to recover. On consumer staples and discretionary, staples demand will probably hold up better. Having said that, even then you will see some challenges because households will likely downgrade to lower priced items. They would reduce consumption of certain high priced items, personal care products, etc. And the product mix may also change against companies, which will result in some pressure on margins. Consumer discretionary demand will be weak in first quarter FY21 and even in second quarter FY21. Having said that, demand for low ticket consumer discretionary items could pick up fairly sharply in the second half of this fiscal year on pent-up demand. But demand for large ticket consumer discretionary items will be weak through FY21 and even in FY22, given the severe damage to household incomes. I would include items such as four-wheelers, paints, tourism-related travel in this category. On financials, clearly you would see a fair amount of impact. We'll have to wait and see as to what's the eventual NPLs one is looking at, and what's the final credit cost. We will get a better handle on this over the next 2 to 3 quarters. It's very early days because we have moratorium. We still don't know the extent of damage to the economy. But one thing is pretty clear, that various parts of the financial sector will get impacted differently. The banks and industries which have more exposure to corporates and housing mortgage loans, they may be in a better position compared to banks and industries who have more exposure to the MSME sector, where the impact will be a lot larger, to personal secured loans, as also the MFI loans. So there I would assume that credit costs would be significantly higher. Insurance companies may be somewhat better off in this business environment compared to the lending companies. The immediate focus of banks would be on the balance sheet and recovery of loans. rather than on incremental credit growth. That may itself create second-order problems for economic growth. The 3 trillion rupees or 3 lakh crore package which was announced by the government for MSMEs in the form of 100% credit guarantee scheme. We'll have to see the details. If it is operationalized in the way we understand, then it may prevent some amount of bad loans in the MSME sector, and that should help prevent damage to the MSME sector. On IT services sector, the impact would be felt in several ways. Number one, weaker health of clients, especially in sectors such as oil and gas, retailing, transportation, hospitality, tourism, and even financial to some extent. Second would be lower discretionary spending in the current calendar year. Some of that will get pushed to the next year. Third is delays in deal closures, etc., due to travel restrictions. And number 4 could be some impact in delivery mechanism during lockdown, although I understand this is not that much of an issue. So as of now, we are looking at some amount of revenue decline for the IT companies in the current financial year and a recovery in the next year. On the last sector, which is real estate, clearly you will see a severe negative impact in the current calendar year. Demand was reasonably good until February. After that, demand would get impacted significantly because as of now, we have a huge amount of uncertainty with respect to salaries in the formal economy and jobs in the formal economy. So I guess at this point in time, nobody wants to really commit to large amount of investment in housing. Now, putting all this together, what does it mean for the earnings for the market as a whole? So as of now, for FY21, the year which ends in March 21, I guess it's very limited point in focusing on that because earning numbers would be bad, really impacted by severe demand in downturn in several sectors in the current financial year. So as of now, we are looking at about 500 rupees EPS for Nifty 50. And to put this in context, at the time of the third quarter FY20 result, this is in the middle of February, we were looking at about 670 rupees. So earning numbers have gone down by as much as 25% over the last 2.5 months. Just to put this in context, FY20 numbers, we are looking at about 490 rupees, so hardly any growth in FY21 versus FY20. Now, some people may wonder why do we have any little growth in FY21 given the severe negative impact on the economy that I was talking about earlier. But do keep in mind the fact that FY20 numbers were pulled down by very high loan loss provisions in the case of banks such as Axis Bank, ICICI and SBI. And we had fairly large amount of inventory losses for the downstream oil companies in the fourth quarter this year, which will come in the numbers of FY20. And also remember, telecom companies are not doing very well. We had hardly any profits for the telecom companies last year. But hopefully, in the current year, we will see a reasonable improvement in the ARPUs of the company. And we are seeing that in the fourth quarter numbers for Bharti. In my view, it's best to focus on FY22 earning numbers. So hopefully, by then, we will see some normalization in the economy. Our best sense at this point in time is consumption will start to normalize by end FY21. FY22 earning numbers hopefully will not get impacted that much. But at this point in time, we're looking at about 660 rupees EPS for FY22 for the Nifty 50 index. At the time of the third quarter results in middle of Feb, this number was about 800 rupees. So we already brought down our earning numbers by about 17%. And we have cut numbers for automobiles, banks, capital goods, IT, metal mining, oil and gas, taking a somewhat dimmer view of both domestic demand as also global demand in FY22 also. On the market side, in the short term, a lot will depend on, how global markets are performing, what's the news flow on COVID-19 globally as also in India, if there is any talk of or any progress on vaccines, and if there is any further fiscal and monetary measures by government and central banks. Now, as far as India is concerned, we may see some support from global markets, but we will probably underperform global markets in the short term, given the fact that we don't have really any near-term catalyst for the market. The economic package which was announced recently to boost the economy was not really much of a package in terms of putting money in the hands of households. As far as the global situation is concerned, things are looking somewhat better over there compared to India. If you look at COVID-19, we already seen Asia reporting very few cases over the last few days, and most parts of Asia is now more or less fully open to business. In Europe, the number of new cases have come down to below 100 on a daily basis in countries such as Austria, Czechia, Denmark, Finland, Poland, etc. And below 1,000 on a daily basis in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, the countries that were hit the hardest by COVID-19 pandemic. And many of these economies have, reopened over the last few weeks. And even the US, we are starting to see a drop in number of new cases. Currently in the range of around 20,000 on a daily basis, it used to be over 30,000 for the month of April. And even US may start to reopen going forward. Developed economies, there is a lot of scope to do a lot more in terms of fiscal and monetary support. And we have seen the kind of measures which are announced by various central banks and governments over the last few weeks. So it looks like developed markets may recover earlier compared to India. Both in terms of their ability to manage COVID looks like better, and in terms of more support to the economy, that also looks a lot better. On India, specifically, we are still nowhere close to the COVID-19 peak. Looks like number of active cases still trying to increase in India. Unfortunately, we are still into some time away, and the fiscal measures announced by the government so far have will not do much to support near-term demand. Having said that, the medium-term demand looks slightly more reasonable at current levels. We have seen a severe correction in many sectors. So that is reasonable, I would say, on a more normal earnings on 22 basis, let's say. Our basic investment scenario is that consumption will start normalizing by third quarter of this year. All the investment cycles will take somewhat longer to recover. On multiples, the Nifty 50 index is trading at about 13.5 times March 22 profits. It looks quite expensive on near-term numbers. That is the March 22 numbers. It's more like 18 times, but I guess the current numbers are depressed because of the large economic slowdown and earnings downgrades we have seen over the last few weeks. So I guess it's better to focus on March 22 numbers and what kind of multiples the market is trading on March 22 numbers. So 13.5 time looks fine, even if there is some downgrades. It means they'll go, as I was saying earlier, we've already cut earning numbers even for March 22 by about 17%. So even if there's further earning downgrades from here of about 5-10%, we will have a market which is range of around 14 to 15 times, which is lower than the last 15-year average, which is more in the range of around 16 to 16.5 on a 12-month forward basis. One more thing to keep in mind over here is that the quality of companies Nifty 50 index is far better compared to what we had in the past. So when you're comparing, current multiples versus historical multiples, just keep that in mind. That given the better quality of earning now, the market multiple also has to be on the higher side compared to what was there in the past, because historically the Nifty was very heavily biased towards commodity companies and public sector companies, which had much lower ROEs, etc. The current crop of companies have much superior business models and also ROEs. The other way to look at the valuation number is, just take an inverse of P, which is earning yield. So 13.5 P would imply earning yield of about 7%. And if you compare that with where the current 2 years bond yield is, or where the current 10-year bond yield is, the bond yields are somewhat lower, in the range of around 5 to 6% for 10-year bond yield. So that gives you a good sense that at least on a medium-term basis, valuations are better. Whenever earning yields are higher than bond yields, historically I've seen this a good time to invest in the market. We have seen that in 2008-9 when earnings yields were higher than debt yields by about 4 percentage points. And the middle of 2013 when there were a lot of macroeconomic concerns about India, given the taper tantrum. and also in late 2016, early 2017, during time of demonetization. So hopefully, from here there is money to be made on a 12 to 24 month basis. Next 3 months clearly a lot of uncertainty, but the medium term picture looks slightly better, I would say. So I will stop over here, and I'm happy to take questions from the participants.
If anyone has doubts, kindly press 0 from your mobile. Sir will answer your questions. Yes. Number ending from 9879, kindly ask your question, sir. 7980889879. Please ask your question, sir. Yes, sir. 9810863632. Kindly ask your question, sir. So people have pressed 0. Okay, I'll give for some other choice. I'm unmuting number 9811551588. Kindly ask your question, sir.
Hi, I have a question regarding one particular company. The name of the company is Ercotech Limited.
Sorry, what's the company again?
The name of the company is Ercotech Limited. So I roughly have around 15,000 shares of this company at 40 rupees. And I don't see any update about the company on the, anywhere on the BSE or NSE. They have not published their results. And I don't see any activity. I don't get any information on the internet about their business activity and operations. They used to be in the business of making, the car keys and automobile. They were in the business of car keys and bike keys.
Okay.
Have any idea? Can you help me with that? Some information. I have tried to contact the company, wrote few emails to them, no response, nothing. But it is still on the BSE and NSE both. Yesterday it has hit the upper circuit. The share is trading at around 2 rupees currently. I wonder if somebody can help me.
Honestly, I don't have much of an idea on this company. It's too small for us to really focus on it. What's the market cap of the company?
Market cap is currently, 1 second, it's only 22 crore.
Oh wow.
The share price used to be 300 at one point of time. Then the share price used to be 300 at some point of time. Then a lot of, something happened and it came down to 140 rupees. I picked up 15,000 shares at 40 rupees. And then since then I don't see anything happening. At least, and it has not gone into insolvency too. I don't know. Wondering. Ideally, if the company does not publish the results, isn't it that the company should be delisted by the exchanges?
I would assume so. It's a regulatory requirement that you have to report your quarterly numbers, your shareholding back in every quarter to the
within a specified time. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to report your results, and you have to, let's say for December quarter, you should have reported by February 15th.
Nothing is there. So can I ask one more question?
Wow.
About State Bank of India? I have got around 10,000 shares. I bought it at the time when the coronavirus had started coming to, when we had 1 or 2 cases. So I bought 10,000 shares at 300 rupees.
Okay.
Being the largest public sector bank, largest bank in India. So what I'm thinking is that, sometime like once they have placed their mutual fund business, once they use their general insurance business, things will started picking up. I don't know. What is your view on that?
At this point in time, it's a very, very cheap stock. Obviously, people are fairly concerned about the impact of COVID on the loan book of all banks, and accordingly, we have seen a big correction in the price of all the banks. Since the start of the crisis, bank prices down between 30 to 70%. NBFCs, to a similar extent. If you look at SBI at 150 rupees, the fair value of all the underlying businesses, which are, your SBI Life, SBI General Insurance, SBI Mutual Fund, SBI Card, etc., that is in the range of around 110 rupees or so.
तुम्ही ज्या व्यक्तीशी बोलत आहात त्यांनी तुमच्या कॉलला होल्डवर ठेवला आहे. कृपया लाईनवरच राहा.
If you put it on hold, the entire line will get disturbed, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can continue, sir.
So,
Yes.
effectively, we are getting the bank for about 40 rupees, and the March 21 book value for the bank itself is about 250 rupees. So effectively, now this bank is trading at 0.15 price to book, which looks ridiculous in my view. Clearly, people seem to have a lot of concerns about, future credit costs. But this is a price I would recommend to hold on. No point, selling at current levels.
I am unmuting next, sir. 984-220-1222. You can ask your question, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir. Hi, sir. My name is Karthikeyan. A common question, like I have a plan to invest of 2 lakh rupees currently. So will it be the right time for investments in different companies' portfolio, or I can wait for some more time where the market will come down where I can invest? Kindly suggest me what time I can invest.
It's always hard to time the market. In the short term, anything is possible. You could have, on the negative side, you could have number of COVID cases will get continue to rise. Which means, the sentiment will be negative for some more time. On the positive side, you could see number of peak cases starting to, active cases starting to peak in the next few months, or next few weeks, I should say rather, hopefully. And maybe some progress on vaccines also globally. So, honestly, short term, very hard to take any stock calls or the market call. More important thing is to take a slightly more long-term view. I would say at least a year. And it's longer if you have the investment horizon. If you're looking at anywhere north of 12 months to 24 months, and hopefully a longer investment horizon, then I think it's a decent time to look at the market. But as I said, in the short term, anything is possible. You could see a correction in the market also from current levels. All I can say, the risk reward balance at current level looks reasonably okay on a 20-24 month basis.
So what you are suggesting is, can I go ahead now, or can I wait for some more time to get it corrected and invested?
Yeah, as I said, it's always impossible to time the market. Very hard to figure out where the bottom of the market is. Nobody knows, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But if you are comfortable with the fact that over the next, let's say, 24 months,
okay,
you could potentially make about 20 to 30% from current level, which I think is possible. Assuming a COVID situation comes in control in the next, let's say, few weeks, the economy starts opening up, demand starts coming back, and earnings damage is somewhat limited. And on a 2-year time frame, I would say that, I think it's possible to make about 20-30% return from current levels. If that's the kind of investment horizon and investment return you're happy with, I would recommend you look at investing. The only way to invest is, basically what's the most probable outcome based on several outcomes that could take place, and then accordingly.
Okay. Okay. So I need to think for the long term now if I am investing now.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Equity is always invest for the long term. Short term, anything can happen. Be prepared for very volatile moments, especially now, given the fact that, you have a lot of uncertainty in regarding the pandemic and also regarding the economy.
Okay. Will the Nifty will come further down?
I am unmuting 8765841424. You can ask your question, sir.
Yes, sir. Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
sir. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन कोटक महिंद्रा बैंक के ऊपर है, और सर मैंने उसको करीब 1600 रुपीज पे बाई किया है. और सर दूसरा क्वेश्चन है कि अगर अभी मुझे इन्वेस्टमेंट करना है
तो फार्मा कंपनी में कौन सी कंपनी बढ़िया रहेगी?
फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल कोटक महिंद्रा बैंक का तो मैं बात नहीं कर सकता हूँ, बिकॉज मेरे पर्सनल एम्प्लॉय हूँ. We don't even cover the.
नहीं सर, तो मान लीजिए कोटक महिंद्रा की नहीं सर, तो पूरा मतलब बैंकिंग सेक्टर कैसा रहेगा? जैसे मैंने तो इन्वेस्ट कर दिया है, तो आने वाले समय में पूरे सेक्टर के बारे में आपका क्या व्यू है?
The next 2-3 quarters you will have a lot of uncertainty with respect to the earning numbers of the bank. For the simple reason, you don't know the extent of impact of COVID on the economy. Right, there is a slowdown, and if the slowdown continues, the increase in credit cost can accordingly be on the higher side. But having said that, a lot of that reflects in the stock prices as of now. So if you look, as I was talking the previous participant, SBI has become extremely cheap now. And effectively, only the value of the underlying business is reflecting in the stock price now. Similarly, if you look at many of the other frontline banks, most of them have come down to 1-2.5 times price to book, barring an HDFC Bank and Kotak, which will be more in the range of around 2.5 to 3 times on a March 21 price to book. So in most cases, valuations are looking reasonably attractive, I would say. Even some of the NBFCs, etc., some of the smaller banks are all trading at about 0.5, 0.6 times price to book. So effectively factoring in a reasonable amount of increase in credit costs and increase in bad debt is what is really factored in, I would say. But the important thing to keep in mind is next 2-3 quarters, people may not have a lot of clarity on the NPA situation. Given the fact that we are still in early days, we have a moratorium currently on, so we don't even know, what is the real situation in terms of the credit problem for some of the banks and NBFCs. My suggestion would be you stay in the larger banks like an ICICI, Axis, SBI at current prices, HDFC among the diversified financials. You take a bucket of names and sit on them for some time. So the stocks are corrected. These are good long-term, companies, the best banks and NBFCs in the country. Don't worry too much about the short-term, price movements. Take a slightly more longer-term call. You would be okay on the banks.
Thank you, sir. 7800001034. Sir, I'm unmuting you. You can ask your question.
Hello, sir. Very good evening.
Hi.
Sir, my question is, I already have my portfolio of around 2 CR. So I want to know how much I need to allocate in equity, gold and debt for next 2 to 3 years.
It depends all on your investment horizon and your reward risk, your risk profile. And I have no idea of that, so it's very hard for me to make any comment on that. Typically, the way you construct a portfolio is, keep some amount of money in gold or cash, basically. Gold is what I know. At current levels, I don't know whether there's a lot of upside in gold because it's already done quite well. And with low interest rates, gold may or may not give, too much of return. So you keep some money in gold for any emergency, between 5 to 10% of the total portfolio keep in gold. Beyond that, it depends on, what is your risk profile. If you are a somewhat cautious type of investor, then it's better to stick with debt. If you are willing to take slightly more aggressive calls for slightly higher returns, you can take a call in equity. At this point in time, as I was talking about earlier, it looks like the reward risk balance for equities looks slightly better, given the fact that, stock prices have come down significantly. Earning yield is about 7%, which is a reverse of PE. On the debt side, you only seen, a fair amount of decline in the bond yields, which means whatever capital appreciation you had to gain in the short term, it's already done. So I don't know whether, bond yields will go down further and you can make some more returns on that. Possible in the short term, but I think on a 2-year horizon, if the economy starts reviving again, I don't think you are going to make a lot of capital appreciation on bonds on current levels. In that case, you have to basically, be happy with whatever is your coupon that you are making on the bond. Let's say if you have a 10-year bond that you have, of not 10 year, let's say 5-year bond with about 6-7% coupon, that's what you're going to make in 2 years, about 30-40%. On equity side, assuming things go well, we don't see a big impact of COVID on, companies and economy as a whole, and second half onwards we start seeing recovery. And I think on a 2-year horizon, there is money to be made in equities, as I was talking about earlier, about 20-30% return can make. So depending on your time frame and your risk profile, accordingly you take a call.
So how much do you think, with the large cap, mid cap, and small cap? Right now, my 50% is on the mid and small cap, and rest is on the large cap, and my risk is I have right now on 70% on equity. So I'm 32 years old, and my risk I take for a long term. So 5 years down the line, my investment are still there with me. So I can hold up with that next 3 to 4 years.
No, then you're absolutely fine. Then 70% equity actually makes sense for you. On the portfolio of equities itself, at this point in time, clearly, mid caps and small caps have also corrected a lot. Many of them have become extremely cheap. Some of the large caps have already run up quite a lot. So, for example, if you look at consumer staples, pharma, telecom, they're more or less back to pre-COVID levels. So maybe not a lot of money to be made over there. So in that case, I would think I think the portfolio is fine in that case. If you have 50% in large caps, 50% in mid caps, small caps, it's fine. Normally, I would recommend more money in large caps versus mid caps and small caps. But given the fact that some of the large cap names have already seen a reasonable recovery in the last 1.5-2 months, starting from middle of March. Many of the consumer names, pharmaceutical stocks are actually above the pre-COVID prices. Even the telecom is above pre-COVID prices, Reliance is near pre-COVID prices. So maybe on some of the large caps you may not make a lot of return. But if the economy comes back really quickly, then when I say fairly quickly in the second half of the current year, it's possible banks may come back and some of the smaller companies, mid caps that you're holding may come back reasonably fast.
Right, sir. And what do you see on the gold side? Because when the economy, when there is a recession and when there is something like that, the gold always bounce back and give returns for a good level. We have seen in 2000 and we have seen in 2008 level as well in a gold. So do you think the same thing happens in this point?
Yeah, see, gold normally works very well when you have some problem in the world, which is the case currently. So it's already reflecting the current problems. Now, if I see things starting to recover, not that things will recover very quickly globally, given the amount of damage to the economy which have taken place, and also the confidence of households and investors in general. I don't see any reason why interest rates should go up globally a lot. Now, typically gold does not perform well when you have some level of inflation, but not a very high level of inflation. Huh? So gold works best when you have a lot of problems in the world, which is essentially some level of deflation. And when you just want to preserve cash, you just put money in gold. Or when you have very high levels of inflation. When again you want to protect the value of put money in fixed assets.
Right.
So in the current environment, I am... Sorry, go ahead.
So is this the right environment for investing in gold? I was thinking to put 20 to 25% of my portfolio in gold and be stick there for next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, I'm not a gold expert, but I don't know whether you should be taking a call on gold for 2-4 years. Huh?
Okay.
If the economy starts recovering over a 2-4 year time frame, I would assume interest rates will also move up. And if interest rates move up, gold will not perform. Then you are better off owning equities in that case.
Yeah.
So if your gold is not something I recommend as an investment, except for a small portion of your overall wealth for emergency purposes.
Right.
10-15%, whatever you're comfortable with, you keep in gold. Rest all, I think it's more, between equity and debt, depending on your risk profile.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
No problem.
I knew a few more people, sir. Sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir. I'm unmuting 98200087234. You can ask your question, sir.
Can you hear me, sir? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Hello?
sir, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. So, I wanted to suggest to our clients, the client's mentality is such that they want, it's not a big return, but they generally tend to like stocks which are even at least moving up, if not, should not be going down, that kind of a thing.
Sure.
So normally there is a lot of confusion when we tell clients buy the pharma. So it looks like, arey, itna badh gaya, bahut badh gaya. And if we tell them to buy banks, private banks like say IndusInd Bank, today they buy, after 2 days again it goes lower, So for a 6 months, I'm not talking very, very long term and all that. For a 6 month perspective, where at least investors can, look at positive return. I'm not saying, big percentages and all. So if I were to recommend pharma than the private bank, the economy starts reviving or COVID situation just settles down a little bit. Till that time, will that be better?
Sure. So if you want to protect money, then probably a better off in a comprehensive consumer staples, pharmaceuticals, telecom, and I would also include Reliance, because Reliance is also now, telecom is a large portion of overall Reliance's numbers. But do keep in mind the fact that stocks have already done well over the last 3-4 months. I mean, they have done well before that also, the consumer names in Reliance in particular, and Bharti also. So these names, are in a way already discounting March 22 numbers. So if things go bad from here, that is, contrary to expectations, COVID situation becomes worse in India, number of active cases continue to rise for some more time, then obviously these names will hold up a lot better, and you will have incrementally a lot more concerns on the banks. Because the more prolonged the COVID outbreak is, the bigger will be the challenge for banks, in terms of eventual bad news and credit costs, right? So, and anyway, I don't think in 6 months you will get a very good handle on the real issues around banks in terms of, what is the actual level of NPLs, what's the actual level of credit costs, and eventual recovery and so on and so forth, because as of now, anyway, a moratorium. So that itself, does not give you a very good situation or rather a very good picture as to what is the real, pain potential of household and SME sectors who have been, hit very hard by the slowdown. Then given the slowdown in the economy, etc., the clarity will only come in another 2 quarters time. So I think only in the September quarter, which means, October, November results, you will have some understanding of, what is the real hit on the banks. And I don't think, the market will get significantly excited about the banks unless some other event takes place, globally, there is a big risk on sentiment, some, serious progress is made on vaccines, etc. Then you could see a big risk on change, which means the banks could come back. Or if the government, contrary to expectations, announces a reasonably large fiscal package. I mean, so far it has announced a 22 million package, a 20 lakh crore package, but there is nothing in the hands of people. To be honest with you, only 2 lakh crore will come in the hands of people. So if they announce some bigger package going forward, then banks can rally. So, 6 months, it's a tricky one because it looks like the market is already giving or factoring in a very good, outlook for pharma, consumer staples, telecom, etc., which already done well, and a very bad outlook for the banks. And normally this is the time to do the reverse. You should probably be selling pharma, etc., and buying the banks. But given the fact that you still don't have any clarity on the COVID outbreak situation and on the economic situation, I think it's best, don't do too much at this point in time. start getting more clarity on the COVID outlook and the economy, then you can start moving your portfolio from the defensives to the more, cyclical and the more riskier names, which is actually banks and your cyclical names.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So at least for the next 6 months, so we can say that what happened in the last 1 month may continue for the next 3-4 months also.
See, when you say continue,
like we continue with the telecoms and the pharmas and avoid the banks.
You can stay invested, but don't expect the same kind of return that you have seen in the pharma names and the telecom names in the last 2 months.
The same. But at least positive to रहेगा, that is also important part.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And secondly, what is your view on the Reliance, sir, longer term? Post rights issue?
Continue to hold it.
What's your view on the...
Because
Hello?
So basically this company is transforming itself into more of a digital technology company. More and more of the revenues and profits will come from the telecom business and the retailing business. If you look at March 22, about 50 to 53% of the EBITDA will come from the telecom business and the retailing business. And the core chemical refining business will become smaller in size going forward. And over the next 5-10 years, really the telecom and retailing business will become far bigger because those are the growth sectors. More important is the fact that, given Reliance's large cash flows, its ability to execute, and the kind of partners it has now got into the telecom retailing part. In the telecom part, that I assume, it's for e-commerce. It can make a very big push into e-commerce, into retailment, into payments, into even lending at some point in time. So I think if there is any company in India which looks like it is going to transform into a big digital technology company, that's into Reliance. So I would stay invested in the company.
Right. So is it a right to invest now, irrespective whether even if the Aramco deal doesn't go through?
Yes, I would say so. If you are taking a 2, 3, 5 year call, I think it's a very good stock to own.
Excellent.
Even the current price is fine, yeah.
All right, sir. Excellent. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, sir.
Sir?
Any further questions?
Moderator, I'm done. Moderator.
Done, sir? Pardon, sir?
No, I'm finished, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you for all investors who joined. Thank you, sir. Thank you for talking with us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you everybody for your time. Hope it was useful. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe, everybody.